flavor for your ear. Epic Spotlight. Putting the spotlight on positive goings on the real people that have chosen a real path. The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared.
And we're back, and we got another one. But before we get going, we got to take care of some housekeeping notes. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now on with the show. Today we have Audrey Ehrhardt. She's a licensed attorney, certified behavioral consultant, and the powerhouse CEO and founder of Practice 42. With a national reputation for helping law firms grow smarter and stronger, Audrey brings deep insight into everything from elder law and estate planning to legal marketing and team dynamics. Whether you're running a practice or simply curious about the future of law, beyond her work in the legal and consulting world, Audrey is a passionate advocate for leadership development and lifelong learning. Often mentoring professionals across industries, she's also known for her commitment to community service and empowering women entrepreneurs to build sustainable, purpose-driven businesses. Welcome, Audrey.
Thank you so much, Dante, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. You already bring a lot of energy. So I was curious about what inspired you to start Practice 42.
You know, it's so interesting because Practice 42, we're actually going to have our 10th birthday this year on Halloween. So I'm so excited, first off, to celebrate that, right? But if you had told me that I would be here helping law firms across the nation find their dreams, similar to what you're doing, right? With mortgage and how you've helped me over time. I mean, this is something that unfortunately no one taught us in law school, how to run a business, how to run a law firm, how to be sustainable. But if you had told me I would be here when I started my career almost 21 years ago, I probably would have laughed at you. I'm the sticky note person. Like, I literally am a sticky note person still to this day. Like, here's your Dante note. You're a sticky note right there on my desk. But that being said, now in law, things have dramatically changed. Team dynamics have changed. The pandemic forced us to make a shift into a more virtual era. And there's so many things that we can do. So I got into Practice 42 in some ways by accident. I sold my first solo law practice over 13 years ago now and went to go work for a legal tech company. And so I was brought in many ways because I had written a series of textbooks on how to run a successful law practice in my industry, which is estate planning, elder law, asset protection, and probate or estate settlement, which is the process of how do we handle affairs when someone is no longer with us. And then for elder law, we focus on how do we navigate the challenges when we cannot necessarily afford care in the home. So that is where I started, and I'd written a series of books on how to do this, kind of in a panic moment. I was always told I couldn't have a child, and then out of nowhere, I came back from Mexico pregnant. I mean, this crazy moment. This probably wouldn't happen to you, Dante, but it happened to me. So I was panicking because I had 5.5 people, and what were they going to do without me? My maternity leave had been intended to be 3 months, and it ended up being, I think, conservatively, all in about 4 days. And so I was back in the saddle. We'll have that conversation maybe over drinks at another time. But I found that the systems, just the systems of what I did, you know, when you get to the office, unlock the door, turn off the alarm system, make sure the air is on. I mean, there's simple like business owner things there, right? But also it applies to our businesses. We're constantly thinking about how do we get the magic out of our head? And that's where I started with these manuals. So I went into legal tech. Did that for a solid 3 or 4 years with a national company. But really what came out of that is there is no one way to run a law practice. Lawyers are told by different places that this is how you should do it. Okay, but if you tell me how to do it, that's not necessarily harnessing the magic of what makes me a business owner, of why I went into law. My journey may be very different from another attorney. Some lawyers are focused on profitability. Some lawyers are focused on work-life balance. Some lawyers are focused on advocacy. So once we identify what your passion is, then we can start to figure out what's that magic in our head, right? How do we do things repetitively over and over and over again? And then we can scale and train a team to essentially not clone us, but in some ways clone us, right? Now with AI, we have all sorts of things we can do to possibly clone you down the line. I mean, we've all seen the Terminator. But as we move down that path, as we think about it, that was the journey for Practice 42. It was, there is no one way to do things. I had a weird hit where I went to go work for an international marketing company. That's why I left the company I was with. I did a 6-month stint there. And then I really learned further in my knowledge base. And I think that's why we always want to be learning. We always have to look and say, you know what, just because someone corrects me or gives me a different way of doing things, it's not a matter of I did it wrong. It's just insight. How do I take what I learned from others and fill that into the void and help make a stronger, better system for myself that works for me? But for most of the law firms I work with across the nation, especially when we're scaling, we are seeing them overwhelmed. They have too much work on their plate. They really cannot get the work done. And so chaos becomes the system. I'm sure you've seen this with other guests as well as listening to some of your other podcasts. Chaos becomes the default. And unfortunately, that's not how we thrive. And that's not how we scale. And even I was flying back from Michigan about a week ago, and I was sitting next to a business owner who was telling me, I have no idea how you're watching a movie on a plane and also working on your phone. And I said, well, I'm watching the movie on the plane because, I like movies. And then the second piece is I'm working on my phone because at this point, my phone is my computer. If I can't do things on my phone, I really don't want to do it. But that's my ecosystem, right? It's not the rainforest ecosystem, but it's my business ecosystem. And so I think there's always, whether we're in law, whether we're building another business, and this was a dentist I was talking to, and we were kind of talking about the scaling aspect. So often there's not the ability to scale, but it starts at the core. We haven't decided what we want for our business. So if I'm saying I want to be the most profitable person and make my favorite, the 7 figures a year, right? I want $1 million a year. Great.
Sure.
But you don't actually want $1 million a year. You want $1 million a year, which means we really need to build for $4 million. So we're kind of thinking those types of things. And so, but at the end of the day, I got here by accident, I think is the long story short. But it's because of the lifelong learning journey and wanting to truly help those in my community and also business owners and people every day that I meet. How can we make your life better? Because so often we just don't know the tools available to help us run our business smarter, better, stronger, those types of things.
No, that's awesome. Great answer and a lot to unpack there. Let's look at just the team dynamic, because you
Sure.
referenced that, and I love your saying of taking the magic outside of your mind. I love that. So if I take the magic outside of my mind and now I want to kind of pass it on to my team, what are the keys to really creating a firm that, provides a culture where top talent can really thrive and not get burned out?
Well, that's a great question. So I think the first thing is trying to I think first off starts with hiring correctly. So often, instead of hiring for what we need, we have a knee-jerk reaction in business. So we say, let me use law as an example. So we say, I need a receptionist, I need a legal assistant, I need a paralegal, I need an associate attorney. My comment to you would be, why? Why do we need all of those things? We need you. You are really important. We need to make sure you're here. But then after that, what do we really need? So a lot of times I train on this at Practice 42. We use something called Audrey's bottleneck list. And so we start mapping out the day. What are the things you wish you didn't have to do? Not the things you should be doing, but the things that you wish you didn't have to do. I'm a great example. I hate answering the phone, literally hate answering the phone. I will text you, as you know, Dante, I will text you within 5 seconds and it could be 2 a.m. But if you call me, it's going to say on my voicemail, text me, because I don't like to answer the phone because I'm very honest about that. But that's on my bottleneck list, right? Running a business, running multiple businesses, you have to answer the phone. So on my list of how I'm going to hire, that's a pain point for me. I have to have that person and they have to have trust. So that means when that person, that team member that I'm hiring in, they have to do what I need them to do. And so I think a lot of times when we're hiring, and I do a lot of hiring for law firms today, when we're hiring in that space, first off, we hire not for what we need, but what we think we need. So first we need to slow down, really itemize, where would we put a 10-hour-a-week person? Where would we put a 20-hour-a-week person? Where would we put a 60-hour-a-week person? So that's kind of our first step. Then do we have the training tools in place to bring them on effectively and well? If I'm running a system that's built on chaos, obviously that's not the system. Well, I mean, maybe if you like chaos, but if you don't like chaos, we need to have a system that shows this person how to be successful. 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with a law firm or any business, they don't have an HR manual. They don't have an operations plan. They don't have SOPs or KPIs, so standard operating procedures or key performance indicators on how this employee will be successful. So you think about it just like a client. If we were going to have a client in our business come in, we don't have them walk in and say nothing to them. But so often I find employees and team members are treated that way. You have a degree, so we assume that you will work here in our business. And so there's a disconnect between the reality of the situation. With that being said, first off, we figure out what we hire for what we need, number one. Now we intentionally train over 3 months and 6 months. Then after that, we want to think about these people as members of our family. I mean, if I'm going to see you every day and I'm going to work, conservatively a 12-hour day with you, I hope I like you. Let's start there. Or if I don't like you, I hope you have a team lead that I like. With that being said, as we move down that path, we have to start thinking about the career path. Just because you're doing something right now doesn't mean that that's this person's story. Just because our employee works for us and works in an amazing spot doesn't mean that's their end game. So we start career pathing, at least I start with people, career pathing early. What do you want to be when you grow up? And now, granted, you could come to me at, I don't know, 75. And that's a great example. My mother is our chief happiness officer. She's over 70. I can't say her exact age. She also will tell you that, old age doesn't happen at 70. With that being said, though, when she retired as a librarian, she wasn't done with her story. That was over 12 years ago. So she loved proofreading, and I needed a proofreader. So my mom is one of my oldest employees here at Practice 42, both in age and also because she's been here longevity-wise, but because we constantly evolved. And, when we started, she's a great example, because when we started on our journey, she just wanted to proofread. But then as we moved through that journey together and she saw more of the company and we developed, she said, you know what, I could also do this writing. I could also help hiring in a specific area. I also could come in and I really want people to feel included. I mean, we are a virtual company. And so one of the things that one of my favorite books out there is Making the Intangible Tangible, Selling the Invisible. So I brought that to my mother. We used the late Tony Heisch's book, Delivering Happiness. And I said, well, how do we do that as a virtual company? How do we get sticky? So I think part of the intentional part of this, and this is why I require for all of my companies a team meeting at least once a week, because I have to see everyone. I have to touch that. I have to make sure everyone is moving forward on their career path, and additionally inside of their ecosystem. And then don't let me hide the ball from you. I'm also an insane person for tracking metrics and numbers. So I'm also monitoring that. So if I see an employee who's typically tracking at a strong 30 hours a week or 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week, and suddenly we see a dip, I'm asking that question, or our COO is, or our CMO is asking that question, what's going on here? How can we make this better for you? So really that intention to team training. And I know I speak on this all the time across the nation, and people will say to me, well, there's no time to do that. First off, there's always time to do that. We just have to make it a priority. And I am also the worst offender. My team will tell you, all of my teams will tell you right now, I'm the person who will say, yeah, I'll be at that meeting, but can I punt it because I want to do something else I'm working on? But our team, if we want to have a long-standing, longevity, career-focused team, we don't punt that meeting. We don't ignore the development pieces that get us where we want to be.
Oh, that's awesome. With what you're speaking of, your mom made me think of in a multi-generational team, right? We're dealing with baby boomers, Gen Zs, millennials, Gen X, all these type. How do you unlock the communication and the growth across age and experience?
I think the short answer is meeting people where they are. What can they use and what can they not use? When I'm looking at a comprehensive training program, and many of the folks I work with today say that, if they can do a 60-day onboarding or probationary period, they're lucky to do that because they are so drowning in work. They have to get them moving forward. In my opinion, I do not encourage that, because first off, there's learning the job, but then there's also learning the communication with the existing team members, especially historic team members. My mom is a great example. She's been here for almost 10 years. Her knowledge depth on clients, on cases, on communication is so much stronger than someone who I've just hired in the last 12 months. So we have to bridge that gap. But there are tools that we use as a virtual company that my mother doesn't enjoy because she is getting a little bit older and she likes to do things in a certain way, and she's done it for 10 years versus my youngest new hire is literally 18 years and 3 months. So that's a whole nother challenge there. But in that space, how do you have those two communicate, right? So we find a platform that helps them communicate, and we navigate different tools. So where I'm going in kind of a long-winded way is, I think for employees who can play within your system that you've set up, you do require it. But if you have a special leadership person in your team, a career person, a historical team member, you help them evolve in a way and don't necessarily move the ball from them. Remember that book from forever ago, Who Moved My Cheese? Change management is incredibly hard. So there has to be a way for us to balance the two of those things together. But also underlying all of that, we have to have protection and cybersecurity. So if the whole business is going 85% this way, and we have 15% of our outliers going the other way, we have to figure out how we're going to successfully manage that. And then are we missing, key moments of communication? And so I'm a big fan of, for all of our team members, if there's a problem, you pick up the phone and you call. It's not an email. It's not and that's actually a pain point here at Practice 42. If I start to notice that instead of solving the problem, you are asking questions for someone else to solve the problem that was brought to you, that's a red flag for me. And then we go down our rule of 3 strikes and you're out. So
I like that baseball analogy, 3 strikes, you're out. Obviously, how do you help professionals discover their authentic voice in the industry, that's known for so formality and so kind of dry? Like, how do you really do that?
You don't love dry lawyers? I mean, come on, Dante. That's the funnest thing, right? No, I think a lot of times I find that finding your voice in law specifically has 2 sides to it. First off, you are on your own, you are building your own shop, you are making it happen. And let me say to anybody who's listening to your podcast, you can make that happen. We start with what is the number that you need to live and eat and run your basics operations, and then we grow from there. But we cover that nugget, right? So I think if we're on our own, there's a more candid way to do that. We do that through discovery. We think about talking about what's your ideal day? What's your ideal client that you want to work with? Who are you working with that you don't want to work with, but perhaps we need that to keep the overhead going? So we start to work through that over a 3 to 6 month to 9-month journey. So we drill down to really, who are you as a professional? Does your brand represent that? Does your typography represent that? Does your mission statement, your vision, your color kit? There's a lot of pieces there. Most of the lawyers I meet, though, are not in that space. They are not opening up. They're in a existing business. Either they're in a partnership, they're in a shareholder situation, they're maybe an associate attorney, maybe it's a team, and there's not really a place for a unique, authentic voice. And I know that sounds weird. So it becomes a balancing of, how do I bring in my unique voice to an existing ecosystem? And I think and I say this to myself as well, as an experienced business person, there are times when people on our team will bring me things that I know are so out of line with our tone and our voice, we can't give support to that. They have to conform, or we have to have a different conversation about perhaps moving in a different direction. But I will say, I think most attorneys, until they go out on their own, are conforming their voice so it matches in the firm that they're with. And I think that often causes the friction within firms. I find friction usually comes up in 3 ways. One is that someone is finding their voice and they're not a fit because they're outgrowing where they are and there's not a career path that matches where they want to be. Number 2, sometimes we don't find our voice, or we find our voice and it's not accepted where we are. And so we have to do a hard out, or we're forced out. So there's that piece too. And then on the third side, what's really beautiful, though, is when we have senior leadership or any type of leadership or partnerships coming together and say, wow, we all do things a little bit different, and we can embrace that. We can find a collective voice. And that's always my true goal, is that whenever we do a lot with mid-size and larger firms, in addition to solos and just starting out small firms, we want to make sure that we don't get smothered, because if we are not authentic as we work with our clients, I think as AI gets more prevalent in all of the legal fields, as there's a shift in how we communicate with clients looking at YouTube. I mean, I look at my 14 and 13-year-old and I can't communicate with them unless I'm on YouTube. Like, I YouTube message them. It's weird. But I mean, you think about that, right? Like, how are we going to find clients in 10 years? Because my kid's going to take that information from your podcast before he takes my information. So how are we building that, right? Like, and this is just our evolving challenge. But I think this is where we stay intentional in our business. No matter how successful we are, how unsuccessful we are, or how frustrated we are, it's listening. And it's not just listening, it's active listening and active comprehending and asking why. Why do we do things this way? My team they will tell you right now, my team at Practice 42, I have redesigned our intake system 4 times in the last year. 2 of them are so mad at me, there are no words at this point. But that's good, because we laugh about it in our team meeting every Tuesday. But it's because I'm fine tuning and I like to innovate. And so I've promised everybody I'll be done building actually, I have Dante 12 days, June 30th. But then we're off to the races. But it's interesting. So I think there's also that balance, because I say that also to all your listeners. Sometimes we're in a work setting and we're trying to find our voice and it doesn't fit where we are right now. So our question has to be, do I stay here? Do I continue down this path? Or do I feel so strongly about my authentic voice, it's worth the risk to go out on my own and figure it out? And I will tell you right now, it's always worth the risk. If you have the vision of how you're going to help people, you will change the world. And so we have to figure out how we're going to do that.
When I hear you speak, I'm thinking of a mindset shift. you're shifting your mindset, you're pivoting when you see opportunities that you need to pivot, and you don't get complacent, the horrible C word.
Yes.
And that's what I hear from you. And so that's great. I was curious to know what are some of the most common mistakes you're seeing firms, are making, as far as trying to get to that next level, as far as the scalability. What do you see?
The number one thing I see is that we come to a place of, is defeatism a word, or frustration, or they're so defeated that chaos has become the norm. They can't see a way forward. So I meet a tremendous amount of lawyers and business owners, especially lawyers who are in that space. The chaos has become so overwhelming and the client needs are so overwhelming, they can't even take a breath to be able to sit down for drinks with me over happy hour this weekend and say, Audrey, if someone could just solve this, it would be okay. Like it's the defeatist overwhelm. That's the number one thing. And I will say to anybody who's listening or anything, take a weekend, put your auto response up, don't take text messages, and think about, write it down on a piece of paper or however you do things, sticky notes or iPhone, whatever, and Android. Write down what you want. If we were 5 years from now, what would you tell yourself because you got where you wanted to be? That's number one, because we can't let defeatist attitude, chaos control us. That's number one. Number two, it's an effective team. So there are team members come to us as a certified behavioral consultant. I get the privilege of doing the DISC profile and things like that. I do a lot of hiring. I do Kolbe, Myers-Briggs, all those different things. Sometimes people just don't fit into the role we want them to. That is not a loss on either side. It's a huge opportunity for both sides. But you have to be prepared as a business owner that may have, if you let someone go after a period of time, that may have ramifications for your unemployment insurance. It may have ramifications for your system or your client relationships. So you have to be really ready to move forward and make that decision that team member is truly not following what you want, which is what you decided in number one. So number two, it's that there's a Hunt from the October years ago. Sean Connery said to the officer, the Russian agent, he said, where I'm going, you cannot follow. A lot of times I feel that like super nerd statement that, it's in the book from Hunt for October, where I'm going, you can't follow with me. So, okay, so you may have to not be here. And there's another great book for your listeners. Necessary Endings is a really powerful book to read. We can't be held hostage to someone who can't follow our process, because you are the visionary. And that comes from the number one. Number two is ineffective team communication. And then number three is an ineffective system. So when we look at how we can harness things today, marketing, intake management, client funnel, client relationship, matter stages. So as we think about that, you hire me under contract as a lawyer, and now we are off to the races to get your work done for you. So I can close the case well and say, you are always part of my client family, but the scope of work is done. I really feel lawyers are behind the curve in understanding all of that should be in one place, and it should be operational. And then you should have SOPs that train on that for your team. But all of your technology, every day I meet with firms and they have arguably 27 pieces of technology. And I can tell you right now, 6 of them do the same thing. So why are we spending money on tools that don't work instead of taking a weekend and investing in what we need to make our lives better? Does that make sense? That's kind of where I go.
It does. It does. I remember I have an employee I hired and to do a specific job. And what I noticed was it was not being done to my satisfaction. But I knew based on the resume, based on the skill set, I just had to find the right position. I didn't have her in the right position. And so, I talk about like the starting five, right? From a basketball analogy. And so I was like, okay, I just got to put her in the right position. I might have put her at the point guard position, but she needed to be more the center. And so sometimes when you're hiring, you have to put people in the right position so they can succeed. And sometimes, to your point, you don't always want, hey, I need a shooting guard. Well, maybe we can adapt and it's find what their skill sets are. And that's what you're saying, right?
Exactly. A lot of times I will start many people that we don't know where they fit yet because they have so many different opportunities and so many different skill sets. Because again, at the end of the day, it comes down to what I need as the business owner to be successful. A lot of times I will hire for the first 90 days to 6 months as a special project coordinator, because we're trying you in different departments to figure out how you fit. And just because you're not successful, for example, in our marketing website building group, it doesn't mean you're not going to be successful in our software customization group or in our paralegal drafting program or our hiring program. It's just a matter of being willing to be flexible. And I think this could be an ageist mindset, right? There are different age brackets that we know demographically adapt to change like that more positively and also more fluidly. Change management is a big issue, but but that's exactly what I'm saying. The point guard, except I like college, but I like the March Madness. I'm not a huge basketball fan other than that, because Florida State, my alma mater, broke my heart. So I'm just kind of done. So yeah.
I remember Bobby Sura and Charlie Ward back.
It's so true. It's so true. When I would fly back about 10 years ago, I would always be on the plane with Leonard Hamilton, the basketball coach, when he would be doing it the last Friday night, flying back into Florida. But that being said, it broke my heart so many times I had to give up. So there we are. No more basketball for Audrey. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. At Practice 42, you offer custom solutions. What's a surprising strategy that turned out to be a game changer for your firm?
For firms, period, because I think I have two answers for you. For firms, period, I think it is hard. It's actually taking the time to tell someone other than yourself. It could be your mother, it could be your sister, it could be me, where you just tell me how a legal service gets done. So if you think about this top down, I'm an attorney. I have my practice areas. I chose the type of practice I wanted: family law, criminal law, personal injury, estate planning. Under that, there are our legal verticals or our legal services. So if I'm an attorney and I'm an estate planning attorney, I'm going to draft someone, most likely a last will and testament. What are all the steps it takes from the moment someone contacts me going forward? That is the most powerful thing you can do in your business. That's first off. Then the question you ask after you write all those steps down, then you ask yourself, should this be me? Is this me? Am I answering my own phone? Am I sending out the questionnaire? Am I drafting a retainer? Maybe not. Maybe that's my intake specialist. Now, what I need to do is meet with the client and do the heavy hitting drafting and figure out how to deliver that. So that's the most powerful piece there. I will say at Practice 42, pretty much the same thing, but it's different. We started as a legal marketing agency. 2 years later, we added performance coaching with implementation. And so what that means is we come in, and when a lawyer says, you know what, I don't have time to write my operating agreement. Okay, think of us as your associate attorney. We're going to do that for you and give you drafts to look at. Over time, we then moved forward, because after a little while, we had clients who said, well, there's a software called Clio. And I said, okay, cool. And they said, well, can you help us figure out how to customize it? So shortly I became a Clio Gold certified consultant, and Clio became Lawcus and Lawmatics and Practice Panther in my case, and all sorts of fun things. But then the pandemic happened, and suddenly no one could figure out how to go virtual. So we spent a year teaching people how to use all of the different software tools. Then people couldn't hire staff. Attorneys couldn't hire staff. So we launched a paralegal drafting program and case management program. Then no one could hire staff. So we went back into hiring, and then no one could find bookkeeping. So we do that. So I bring all of that to say is we have evolved with our clients because we're listening to what they need. And I think a lot of times in our businesses, we're so busy trying to achieve whatever we think we want because we haven't done that first exercise of what do I really want? We don't have that time to have that intentionality to really be the success that we want to be.
No, that's awesome. I think more of us business owners do need to stop and really assess. We look so much at gurus and people that are having success, and is that really what you want?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very good question, always. So, and I don't think, everyone's division of success is better. If my focus of success, my definition of success is I can leave work at 4 o'clock every day because I come back at 4 in the morning. And so I like to leave by 4. And now all of my clients who are listening to this right now will be like, oh man, Audrey talks to me at 6 o'clock Eastern. What does that mean? Well, that means I care. I mean, I'm going to step outside my process to make sure you have what you need to be taken care of as we move forward. And one day you'll be in my magic time zone of 4 to 4. So
got to get them there. Got to get them there.
Absolutely.
I was interested. You are a national speaker on elder law and estate planning. And I was just curious, what are some of the biggest shifts happening in those fields right now?
Well, We have, so we need to be aware that the laws are changing specifically with regard to the federal estate and gift taxes before the end of the year. They sunset at the end of this year. So we need to be very aware. And if anybody who has an estate planning attorney should be talking to their attorney about what does this next chapter look like? If we move forward with legal changes, if Congress makes changes, and then also if they do not make changes. We need to be very aware of that. That I think is a very big opportunity right now, depending on how that shakes out at the end of the year. So if I have an estate plan, I'm talking to my attorney asking that. I will also make the comment there that most estate planning clients will say to themselves, you know what, here I am, and I'm in this space, and I did my will, I did my trust, I made it, it's done, so I never need to think about it again. No, 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 no. Your estate plan should be a living part of your life. You always want to be looking at it with your attorney every year. Are there legal changes I need to make? Are there things that you can find for me that could be more beneficial for my family ownership structure? Is my business protected? Maybe we had a new baby. You know, I was working with a client over 10 years ago who had 4 babies, and we still thought she was a single person. So those types of things, life changes, right? So we have, but those are the things that cause frustration and also stress for the family. Because so many people, so many times I'll talk to folks and they'll say, you know what, it doesn't matter when I die, it'll just figure it out. Well, no, no, no. Your state has a plan for you. If you don't have a plan in place, a will or a last will and testament, the court has, your state has a plan for you. And the goal is first and foremost that you pay your creditors. And then it's going to go by an order that you may not want. So we have to be really intentional about that. And also it's disturbing right now, the most recent statistic I saw was less than 39% of Americans have an estate plan. And of those 39%, this was on care.com, of that 39%, only 50% of them have updated in the last 5 years. You think about what's happened in the last 5 years. Is that even accurate of what you want now? So now as we think about that for elder law is such an amazing animal, but a lot of times what we're doing in elder law is we're focusing on how to protect the family assets and not impoverish a wife or a husband when the other spouse needs long-term care. Long-term care, you know, Medicaid often has a bad name, but Medicaid is a program, a shared state and federal program to provide safe housing for seniors who can no longer perform their activities of daily living. So when we think about that, you know, once I turn 70, I have a 50-50 shot of having Alzheimer's before I die. I also have a 40-60 shot of living to 95. That's all documented. You can read about that on the NIH, at the CDC, all of those types of things. So we have to be planning for that. If something happens to me at 71 and I have to go into a long-term care facility, like an assisted living facility, because I need memory care, that bill starts at $6,000 in most communities a month. Our folks don't have the money to pay for that. And we don't have a social safety net because Medicare stops covering things that are custodial care. Acute care, Medicare, in my opinion, is built for the purpose of I break my arm, I get my doctor to heal my cast, and I go off to the races. But now we have this generation of folks between 70 and 100 who have no way to pay for long-term care, and they don't realize that they don't have to bankrupt their well spouse. We can make plans in place to make sure that they're cared for under benefits they've paid their tax dollars to for years. So.
I'm just curious, Audrey, why do you care so much? I mean, what really got you into this line?
That's my job, right? I am here to help people. I don't want to freak anybody out. I'm a hardcore Jesus person, hardcore. But I mean that I truly believe life is not easy, right? Like I am a divorcee, like I've been through that. I have a blended family, those types of things. My best friend was my therapy dog and he passed away. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 21. You wouldn't tell, right? Like you can't tell it right now. My brain looks like Swiss cheese. I will tell anybody who has multiple sclerosis, please talk to me. I will give you a whole 25 years of history there. But with that being said, I managed extremely well by medicine. I am a hidden illness warrior. I died of COVID when Delta came out. I mean, all sorts of fun things you can learn about me. But that being said, it doesn't matter, right? If we can make one person's life better just by listening today, that's what matters. It doesn't matter any of that. It doesn't matter my backstory. But if you hear, like the dentist I sat by on the plane, the dentist did not know that he could get Outlook on his phone. Everyone can get Outlook on their phone. But I mean, that was such a game changer. We sat there in the Atlanta airport and he downloaded the app and then he didn't know what a VPN was. So we talked about security. But I mean, he sent me a thank you card because that changed his life. But I mean, it doesn't matter about the thank you card. What matters is we change something for someone else, and life can be so hard. We need to be the light. We need to step up to the plate and do those things. Sorry, as I get really aggressive. Sorry about that. Like
I love it.
happy aggressive, right? So yeah.
I love it. It was good. It was good. Hey, as we wrap this up, I was curious. Let's have some fun. If
Sure.
you could write a letter to a younger version of yourself, starting out in law and business, what would you say?
You should have listened to Grandma Ehrhardt, your first husband's 95-year-old grandmother, and not taken your husband's last name. I fought that battle for a year. So that's the number one I would tell myself. That's number one. Okay. Number two, I would say always have a dog. Always have a dog. Your dog is your best friend. I'm a big dog person. I've always had labs. I have a new puppy I'm training right now. But my lab for a long time, he passed away about 2 years ago. And so always have a dog. That is number two. And then I think number three, I would have told myself, if you could just give yourself the grace and time to think about things, at least for 24 hours, at least for 40 hours, 48 hours, move slow and with intention, and don't jump quickly. It will all work out. It always works out. I mean, even if you have to go work at, wherever you don't like to work, as a cleaner at night, it will always work out. Believe in yourself. And I think especially for women business owners, I didn't have that confidence early on. And if I can give that to someone else, those would be the most important things. Oh, and
That's
also,
awesome.
wake up before work starts. Wake up at least 3 hours early, because that's when the magic happens. That's when you have quiet. Now, if you say to me, Audrey, I hate waking up in the morning, that's fine. Then stay up late and work on it. But I'll tell you, those quiet hours is where everything happens.
Audrey, that was great information. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Are you kidding me, Dante? I adore you. Anyone who's listening to this, if you haven't used Dante, that's how Dante and I met. Dante is my absolute favorite person. I'm here as a walking testimonial, 100%. You are amazing. I'm glad you have this podcast for people.
Super cool. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate you. And Audrey, I want you to have an epic day.
That have chosen a path. The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared and given to you. Epic Spotlight, baby. A new flavor.